Hey everybody, welcome back to Floorball Guru. My name is Dave Crawford and I am Floorball Guru. Today we're going to be talking and continuing the conversation, learning from other people around the world how they play floorball, how they approach floorball. And today I've got a special guest on. I'm really excited to learn from him personally. I hope you are as well. He lives in Sweden. He's a floorball player, but more specifically a floorball goalie, and he's got a lot of different things and some really cool projects that he's working on. So welcome, Stefan, to our our cast. I don't know what that is, but welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be joining you and try to give you some advice or tips for the future.
Yeah, we'll tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, where you are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I started my floorball career as a goalie when I was 12 years old. I was just walking home to a classmate, and they had no one watching the goal, so they asked me if I couldn't put myself in the goal in the net and try to catch some balls, and yeah, it went well.
That
And,
seems to be the case with a lot of goalies, doesn't it?
yeah, and it's it's one I changed from football to floorball because it was an exciting game, and in the beginning it was not that good equipment, but in the ride I have seen a lot of change, and today it's massive.
So, what would you say is the biggest change from growing up to now, as far as either goalie equipment or goalie training specifically?
Uh, in the beginning, there was no equipment, no gear at all. You had to make your own mask from a hockey hockey helmet, and yeah, you have to basically do it yourself. And today you have these big brands that focus on developing really good stuff. You have, as you see, my sponsor, and you have also, besides Unihockey, you have Salming and Blind Save, who is pushing each other in the future.
Yeah, that's what I love about any sport is again the idea is competition, and when we have more brands get involved, that pushes the game to the next level and makes it better for everybody. And I think that that's a little bit of what I see you doing online specific to goalie training. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing for goalie training?
Yes, this last season I was maybe 5, 6 times a week with different clubs. I have my own business, my own company. I started in 2007. Basically, my hometown or home island, it's Åland. It's a little island between Finland and Sweden. And I played in the Finnish highest league, and then I moved to Sweden and played in the highest league in Sweden. And then they asked me back home on the island that why shouldn't you bring your stuff back home and be a goalie in our national team? And I said no, it's too small. I can help you with the goalies, and that's why I started my company, my business at 2007. And then I also was playing in the highest division in Sweden, so it was just some courses. And in 2010, I won or lost a silver medal in Globen against Storvreta. And afterwards, maybe 2015, 2014, it went more to just training goalies. And now for the 5 last years, I think I'm only training goalies, and I stopped being a referee as well. So that's why last season I was out with 5 times a week, maybe.
And so you're basically working with as like a traveling trainer. So clubs would reach out to you and say, we need help with our goalies. And are most clubs that would be doing that, are they doing that because they don't have a goalie coach, or the coaches that are in that organization don't have that training and that skill to work with goalies, and so that's why they're reaching out to you?
It's both, I think. They don't have the knowledge, or they don't have a goalkeeper trainer, no goalie coach. I think it's a combination of that. most cases there are younger goalies I train, and that's good because they need the basic skills and they have to learn. I don't know if you could say the right technique, but some technique in the development. If they're older, it's more difficult to change some failures or difficulties or problems. But they reach out to me, and I found a spot in my calendar.
So how do, because that, again, if we're looking at goalies, and I was a soccer goalie or football goalie as well, and it's a very specific person, specific training, and so if you don't know that skill set, it can be hard to teach. So how do you, or what things would you recommend for somebody starting out new, areas to focus on with younger goalies in particular, just to give them that sense of a proper technique, proper technique.
Yeah. I think it's important to have a basic position when you're sitting up and have your hands in a low push-up, not too high and not too low. And that's basically most of the time I go out to new goalies. I have to adjust their hand movements, and you have to find some athletic position when you're sitting on your knees and have a strength in your core, stomach and your back. So basically that, and then you have three basic techniques for movement. You have the push, pull, and knee to knee. And if you follow me on Instagram or something, you could see all the exercises that that trains that position.
Yeah, and that's so. How do you now? When I teach, I try to stay away as much from just strict drills and things like that. What do you do to make it fun for goalies?
With younger goalies, you can always start with some warm-up play, some game you can have. Maybe you can put up 2 goals and have maybe a soccer competition, but they are standing on their knees and trying to get the ball in the net. You can, in the end of the exercise, you can have also some playful games. There's a standard way to do this in my when I'm teaching. I have this head, shoulders, knee, take the ball. It's a yeah. So you have to try to give them some playfulness in the beginning, in the end, and when you're training the techniques, you don't have to focus for so long. You have to maybe have 6, 7 repetitions, and then you change the goalie, and then you keep the motivation up, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and that's, I find anything, especially with younger kids in general, anything you can do to keep it fun and movement. And I know while the drills are important, anything we do more of that play-based learning, especially at the younger levels, always just makes it more fun and engaging across the board. But so that's great. I love hearing and seeing what other people are doing on that space. So can you talk a little bit about where floorball is in Sweden? I mean, when I go and I talk about the sport and people ask where it is, I mean, to me, it's the top in the world are Sweden and Finland every year. Switzerland's doing a great job. Czech Republic seems to be doing a really good job coming up as well, and other countries. But as far as like amount of players that are playing, can you talk a little bit about what the structure is at the youth levels for the sport?
Um, I agree on everything you say. I think Sweden is number 1, and then Finland, and so on. You have a lot of players. That's the big difference. In Finland, you have maybe a fewer players, but they are still at a high level. In Sweden, there are a lot of players, and that generally gives some elite in the end. For youngsters, they are, I don't know if this might be 1,000 games every weekend in Stockholm. So you have a
Wow.
lot of games, a lot of players, a lot of youngsters, and in different divisions. One thing they are doing in Sweden and in the National Swedish Floorball Association is that they have the league after skill level. So you can play in 3 years. You can be 7, 8, 9 of years, and 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. And then you can mix where are your team in skill level. Then you have always games and matches that are competitive. You don't win or lose by 1 to 17, and that's quite new thinking. It's a
Yeah.
revolution. And I also know that football and hockey in Sweden are looking at the Floorball Association and trying to adapt because it's no fun for a 12, 11-year-old boy or girl to lose by 117.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's interesting. So at the younger levels, in that 7, 8, 9, all those kids are pushed together, and in those age groups, are they all formed into teams with a 7, 8, 9 year olds on them?
No,
Is that how?
they can be teams that are 8 years old, but they are not that developed, and then they are meeting in a league that are for 7-year-olds, and the
Do,
seven are if they're really good, they can meet 9-year-olds.
okay.
It's
Interesting.
it's a big discussion. If you lose the competition, if you lose the health of winning and things like that. So it's it's almost like the corona, you know. Are we doing it right or no? We have to see in the end. But I think they also had looked at Belgium, their football academy. I think they are the first one to do it like this in the world.
Interesting. And even at those levels, how often are they training and playing? Is it a 5 days a week kind of a thing? Is it every other day? What's the commitment as for a player?
Yeah, I was a trainer coach for a group of 12, 13-year-old boys, and they were like top 6 in Sweden. So we played against 15, 16 years old, and we had training for 2 days a week, 2 hours. Then we had one physics, and then we had games 2 times a weekend. So 5 times a week totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's not too far off of what our youth structure is set up. Do you see a lot of? Is there a lot of travel involved at the younger levels? Something where you're hopping on a plane or driving or a train or something and going 2, 3 hours just to play a game and then come home. Is there a lot of that, or is most of that more local, city to city kind of play?
Yeah, it's more local, and it's basically Stockholm is one area. Then you have Uppsala, Uppland, where you have to maybe go 1 hour in the higher division. And when you get older, like 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, maybe you have more traveling across the nation. And there's a special series that is JAS, Juniorallsvenskan. It's the highest division for 16, 17, 18 years old in Sweden.
Okay.
There's a national league.
But the majority, as far as youth development, is primarily local.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I think that's really important. Do you think that that's key? Or do you see more of that happening, or do you see more of the sport starting to branch out as far as like competitive leagues and travel teams and things like that within the country?
No, I think it's here for to stay, and I don't think the economics are there yet for traveling, and I don't think the parents are are going to be satisfied to travel a lot. There are a few there are few parents, few players that might change some teams to get a better development, but I don't know if that's uh, too soon if you're
Sure.
11, 12 years old.
Yeah, and then the flip side, when we look at North America and the U.S. in particular, um, we just don't have that same kind of local development. So if you did have a youth team and wanted to play, it's really hard to play anything local. You have to travel, hop on a plane or drive or something like that, or you're only able to go to tournaments. And I know we've had a group go over to Europe to play in a tournament. We have a couple tournaments throughout the U.S. to go and play, and there is an emphasis to get youth. But my focus, and I've been pushing, is that model of we need to grow the sport at the local levels, and we need people teaching it and clubs forming and starting in some fashion and focusing on that youth so that we can play, a game 5, 10, 20 minutes away, to grow and then build it from there. And I think that model is really important to follow.
Yeah. I think there's a difference if you go maybe beyond outside the big cities, because I know if I compare this to Åland, the island, they take the ferry. One team from Åland take the ferry to Sweden and play in the local series in Sweden. That's a lot. That's a far travel. It's long travel. But they also have a local series for maybe 4, 5, 6 teams. It's only they're only living 26,000 people in Åland, so there's why you don't have the chance to have a bigger series. In Stockholm, there's 1-2 million if you have the whole city.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, can you talk a little bit about, obviously, you're at home, I'm at home, we're stuck at home, and that's the way of the world right now. But what is the conversation happening in Sweden or around floorball on how to, or what is the process going forward? Are you guys starting to practice and train? Are leagues plan to start in the near future? What's the process going on there with Corona and all that stuff?
I know that some teams are practicing pre-season. They are running. They are outside, maybe at the gym. All the gyms are open in Sweden, so you can basically go to the gym. I can go to the gym if I like to, but I stay at home. I don't want to take any chances. And so I think they are preparing almost like the season before. I think that they are maybe taking a big, what do you say, 2 meters from each other, and having the distance, maybe more. But running and gym by your own body weight, I think they are preparing. It's not big difference. It's the difference when you maybe go inside in a locker room and you're gathering a lot of people. That's a big difference. So I don't think they have to. I think they start inside maybe sooner. The aim in Sweden, I think, is to start the season in August, September, sometime.
Okay. Good. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, because I know that you guys have some really big tournaments over there that especially in the summertime, that I think are up in the air a little bit. And I hope you'll be able to do them.
Yeah, I think the tournaments are not going to happen. I don't think so, because all the big festivals and concerts and gathering with a lot of people are banned or not allowed to happen. So I don't think that the big tournaments are going to happen either.
Now, a couple more questions before I let you go. One of the things I think is really key to the sport of floorball is attracting new people, new players to the sport in general. I think there's one area that is very crucial to the sport for its longevity and its growth, and that's in girls and women. So how are women and girls attracted to the sport and continue, given the opportunities to continue to grow in the sport, specifically in Sweden?
I almost think it's better for women in Sweden. They are more attractive, I think, to the sport. in general. I think guys are, if you have to make a difference, are more competitive between football, hockey, and floorball, and the girls are more attracted to maybe floorball, volleyball, football. If you look at Täby, where I'm living, we have the Swedish champion of last year, Täby, not to top this year.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to make some role models that are successful, and then you have the younger people just following and look up to them. I think the sport itself, it's attractive for in economics. It's a cheap sport, and it's not that physical. Even if it is physical, you don't have to have any protection like hockey, and I think that's a big win for the game.
Awesome. And I believe you've got a couple different tournaments coming up. We've got the U19 World Championships, which are going to be in Sweden, and there's a lot of excitement around that. And that was going to be in May, and it will be in, I think, September this year. So it's going to be really exciting to see that happen in a great location. And then there's the men's tournament in December. So what do you think? Who's your dark horse? What country do you think is going to maybe show up a little bit more out of those two tournaments? Obviously, we've got our top 3, 4: Sweden, Finland, Czech Republic, Switzerland, in that kind of range. But are you seeing some other countries starting to kind of gain some better traction in their development, and how's that looking?
Czech Republic is coming really strong because of their hockey tradition, I think. It's easy to adapt to the game with the tactics. I think they have a strength in the tactics, but it's far away up to the big 3. I think still they won the young U19.
Yep.
And that's a big receipt that they're doing the work the right way. But I think maybe Russia, Estonia, Latvia is coming in the future. They have a great developing, and many more players are getting into the sport there. I think they are in the future, maybe not now.
Yeah, it was fun to be at Halifax last year and watching that tournament and see that play. It was really, really clear how some countries had grown, and seeing that growth. And I think even when we look into the men's and the women's across the board, Asia and out of Asia with Thailand and Singapore, they could be dangerous down the road as well. They look really solid, and the growth seems to be going well too as far as development. And then down into Australia, New Zealand, there seems to be a good push there. But throughout Europe, and then hopefully in North America, we'll be able to continue to kind of claw and get a bit more competitive as we work on things at home. So I really want to thank you for taking the time. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. For anybody that's watching, follow Stefan on his Instagram. He's got some great videos that he's doing. And then if you're interested in more information, make sure to check out my website, www.floorballguru.com. And again, let's follow the conversation. I want to thank you again, Stefan, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. The same to you.
All right.
Very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, there you had it. We had a wonderful conversation. I learned a lot from Stefan, and I'm excited to follow his journey and continue to see where the sport continues to grow and how he continues to push and expand goalies specifically and continue to work. So please make sure to give him a follow and support what he's doing, and make sure to support all floorball players and organizations around the world as a collective we continue to work and build this sport. So I thank you. I hope everyone's doing well, you're safe, you're happy, and more importantly, keep floorballing.